For the longest time, I didn't think I was capable of cheating. I built part of my identity around the idea that I was loyal, even when things were hard. I was with my boyfriend for just over 3 years. From the very beginning, I was clear about what I wanted in a relationship. I didn't ask for grand gestures or luxury. I wanted effort, romance, to feel pursued, flowers sometimes, planned dates, feeling chosen. Early on, we even made a list of simple dates we wanted to do together. Nothing complicated, things like a picnic, a walk somewhere nice, dinner plans we could look forward to. But most of those dates never happened. Or they were postponed again and again until they quietly disappeared. Whenever I brought it up, I was met with excuses. He was tired. It had been a long day. He had training later. He'd rather stay home. There was always a reason not to try. Over time, I stopped asking as much. Not because I didn't want those things anymore, but because the rejection started to hurt more than the silence. He also kept his distance from my closest friends, especially my best friend. They met only a handful of times over the years, and he never made an effort to really get to know her. Eventually, after I overshared a bit about how she felt unsure about him, he told me he didn't like her, said she judged him, said she wasn't his kind of person. What she had actually said was that she didn't understand him, that he seemed closed off and distant during the one real dinner conversation they'd had. By the second year, something else hit me hard. I realized we had never celebrated an anniversary. When I brought it up, he asked me when it even was. I remember standing there, stunned, wondering how someone could forget something that felt so important to me. I suggested therapy before things got worse. He shut it down immediately. Absolutely not. Around the same time, my sexual needs slowly disappeared from the relationship. Months went by with little to no intimacy, no real effort to talk about it, no curiosity, no attempts to fix what was clearly broken. I started feeling less like a partner and more like a caretaker, like a roommate, like someone who was always giving and quietly shrinking. And I didn't know yet that someone else was about to notice everything my boyfriend didn't. Last Valentine's Day made everything impossible to ignore. Once again, there were no plans, no dinner, no flowers, no acknowledgement. I ended up spending the evening with my best friend and a few other friends, trying to pretend it didn't bother me as much as it did. The next day at work, a group of us were casually talking about how we spent Valentine's Day. When I mentioned mine, one coworker reacted differently than everyone else. He looked genuinely confused, almost shocked, like he couldn't understand how someone could treat their partner that way. That coworker was someone I'd noticed before. He was friendly, observant, and had a habit of asking questions about people's relationships. Nothing inappropriate, just curious in a way that felt thoughtful. At some point, he mentioned that he'd be leaving the job in a few weeks. After that, his conversations with me became more open, more honest. I caught him looking at me once, not in a creepy way, more like he was paying attention. He found small excuses to talk to me during the workday, short check-ins, passing comments. One day, he invited me out for drinks. I only agreed because I thought other coworkers would be there too. They weren't. When I left, he walked me to my car. Before I got in, he asked, politely, if he could kiss me. He said it might be the last time we'd ever see each other. I said yes. It wasn't the last time. After that, we talked occasionally for months. At first, it stayed friendly. I made it clear I didn't want to cheat. I was proud of the fact that I wasn't that person. Or at least, I thought I wasn't. Meanwhile, nothing changed at home. The neglect continued, the distance, the lack of effort, and slowly the coworkers started to feel safe. I began opening up to him about how unhappy I was. He listened. He asked questions. He offered emotional insight. He gave me something my boyfriend rarely did, reciprocity. It felt good to be seen. One night, when I was out of the house and away from my boyfriend, I made plans to see him. That night changed everything. That was the moment I crossed a line I never thought I would cross. And once I crossed it, I didn't immediately stop. What started as one bad decision didn't stay that way for long. After that night, I didn't suddenly leave my boyfriend. I didn't confess. I didn't even fully accept what I was doing. Instead, I compartmentalized. I told myself it was temporary, that I was just confused, that I would figure it out soon, but instead, I started lying. Since around June, my life split into two separate versions. One where I was still the dependable girlfriend, cooking, showing up, pretending everything was normal, and another where I was sneaking, hiding messages, deleting calls, and making excuses. The cheating didn't feel dramatic or glamorous. It felt stressful, heavy, complicated. But I kept going anyway. A few times my boyfriend caught small things. A text notification, a screenshot from FaceTime. Nothing concrete enough to fully expose what was happening, but enough to raise questions. Every time I panicked. Instead of doing the hard thing, I doubled down on the lies. I played dumb. I got defensive. I gaslit him. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I was terrified of blowing up my entire life. I told absolutely no one, not my friends, not my family. I carried all of it alone, buried under shame. The secrecy started to consume me. Meanwhile, the connection with my coworker deepened. The feelings became heavier. What once felt like comfort started feeling like another responsibility I couldn't escape. The guilt didn't make me stop. It just made everything messier. I wasn't proud of who I was becoming, the constant pretending, the mental gymnastics, the fear of being found out. It all became too much to hold. I could feel the collapse coming. I just didn't know when it would happen, or how bad it would be when it finally did. Everything came out yesterday. My boyfriend confronted me one last time. I could tell he already knew. Or at least knew enough. He asked me directly, probably after going through my phone again. This time, I didn't fight it. I didn't play dumb. I didn't get defensive. I didn't try to twist the story or protect myself. I just looked at him, exhausted, and nodded. I didn't even need to say the word yes. It was written all over my face. I felt horrible watching the realization hit him. The pain, the confusion, knowing that I was the one who caused it. And yet, underneath the guilt, there was also relief. I hated myself for hurting him, but I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. He never noticed how unhappy I had been for so long. I had slowly slipped into this role of caregiver, homemaker, emotional support, and he accepted it without question. He got comfortable. He took me for granted. That doesn't excuse what I did. I cheated selfishly. I filled a void instead of facing it. It was a cowardly way to ask for help. But pretending everything was fine had been draining me for months. I never wanted to be this person. Cheating still doesn't feel like it aligns with who I am. I loved him. Part of me still does. But loving him came at the cost of slowly losing myself. Now that the truth is out, at least I'm no longer living two lives. I don't have to hide, lie, or pretend anymore. As painful as this is, I'm glad he knows. Because whatever happens next, it will be real. And this time, it won't be built on silence.